7 names, no games as I run it down the line. We got Kenny Ken, put 100 on the tees with the streak for the cash. He ESPN, Seth Curry with the shot. In reality, he's more like Seth, but he's all we got. Up next is Gentleman Jack, better known as Junior Blue. We told him not to do it anyway, but he did what he do. To his right is Devin, that dude, Eldad or Dirt Ass Dan. Just don't ask him a question, cause then he'll answer your question with another question, and then he'll add another question on top of that question. Damn. And now I'm Red O, the Buck Wild Problem Child.
Flow Butter, aka John Cutter.
It's the league ambassadors, and we playing to win. At the 2-yard line, and make no mistake, we running it in. Pete Carroll, we see you.
Thank you for visiting 32 Kings Road, hosted by the league ambassadors. I'm Ambassador Kenny Ken, and it is my pleasure to be here today with my brothers. This is episode 47 of our show, and on today's show, we will be previewing the 2018 NFL football season. I'm excited about it. We also are going to have a chat with a special guest who we'll get to in a little bit, but first, as a reminder, you can follow us everywhere on social media. Our handle is @TheLeagueAM. That is Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Also, please check out our website, theleagueam.com. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, League Ambassadors. And let's get the show going. Red-O, what you sipping on, brother?
I'm sipping on a little Jesus juice. And I'm going to take y'all to church today. I'm here to tell y'all, my pastor, GM Ryan Pace, is a bad man. I'm here to tell you, he delivered us Khalil Mack from the wastelands of Oakland to the promised lands of Soldier Field. Now pay your tithes.
No, Chicago already paid them.
For real.
Oh my God, Kev, what you sipping on, dog?
I am sipping on this Benner's peach tea, which looks like Snapple, but it's cheaper.
And it looks cheaper too.
Hey, it don't taste like it though. I know I've been holding back on the alcohol now that football season starts. I'm only drink on game days, and since the Ravens have 2 games next week, I'm gonna hold back. But in 2 weeks, I'm gonna get lit with y'all. But more importantly, I'm sipping on the story of a Mr. Effie Obada. I apologize if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. He was born in Nigeria, straight out of Wakanda. He survived child trafficking and homelessness that eventually led him to moving to London. He didn't attend college, but he ended up playing football part-time at the age of 22 for the London Warriors, which is a British-American football team. And Effie ended up making the Carolina Panthers roster last week as a defensive end, becoming the first player in the International Player Pathway Program to make an NFL 53-man roster.
Yes, sir.
Foreshadow.
Junior Blue, what you sipping on, sir?
I'm sipping on this Irish whiskey right now. I did quite a lot of drinking this weekend for a combination of reasons. And really all I have to say is, you're welcome.
Yeah, man. We'll take it. All right. I'm sipping on some Johnny Walker Red Label. And I'm also sipping on the fact that I was going to say what Kevin said. And Kevin took it. Well, I mean, the other piece of it is Jordan Mailata, who Devin and I, we saw his tape from the combine and instantly knew that this guy was going to make somebody's roster. Howie Roseman in Philadelphia has been cheating. But yeah, I mean, just the fact that international players, these 2 international players, have made the 53-man roster of these NFL teams, for me, just validates what we're doing. That there's definitely a movement internationally, despite all of the controversy that surrounds the NFL in America, and we're on the right path. Dad, What are you sipping on, sir?
Well,
Controversy.
I'm sipping on. Look at that segue.
Right.
I'm sipping on some of the Uncle Jamie, and by the way, happy belated birthday, Junior Blue.
Yes.
Let's recognize that.
Oh, motherfucker.
Man, Les, ain't nobody come to see you, Otis. Today is about Beyonce.
Oh, wow.
All right.
That's for last week.
So what I'm sipping on is one of the hottest topics in the country right now. So it was announced over the weekend, the long holiday weekend, that Nike has been paying Colin Kaepernick all along, and have been they've been waiting for the right moment to announce that he has become the face of the 30th anniversary of their Just Do It campaign. Other athletes involved in this campaign are Serena Williams, Shaquem Griffin, the player for the Seattle Seahawks who has one arm, or one hand, I'm sorry. He definitely has two arms. Odell Beckham Jr. and skateboarder Lacey Baker. So Kaepernick put out a tweet with a picture of him and the words saying, "Believe in something even if it means sacrificing everything." And the backlash has been amazing and laughable. So there's a few questions that I wanted to get to. People are actually burning their Nike paraphernalia. One person even accidentally burned their feet because they burned the shoes with them still on them, and he ended up in the emergency room.
2 second-degree burns
Right. But
on his feet.
other athletes have also come
Was it worth it, dumbass?
Other athletes have come to Cap's aid and have supported him and have backed him up. So the questions that I want to ask, let's start with this. Does this negatively or positively affect his cause, his collusion case, or how we view him? So I want to open that up to the guys. There's a couple more questions that we'll probably naturally get into.
I don't think it negatively affects his cause because he's now being backed publicly by Nike, a behemoth, so it can't do anything but help that cause if they're finally putting their foot forward, saying, "Hey, we've been paying him all this time. That's how he could afford to pay them millions to the charities." But I mean, so the collusion case, I don't think that has anything to do with it. I think that's separate.
What made you think this was the right time, though? Because they said they've been waiting on it.
Football season.
Let's get to it. Yeah. Here's my thought on it. I agree with you, Omar. I think that it absolutely helps his cause. The two things that I have for it, and I'm getting right to you, what you were touching on, Les, is number one, I want to know that Nike is also going to be making donations to the causes that Colin Kaepernick is standing up for. That's number one. But number two, to your point, the 30th anniversary of Just Do It. So Michael Jordan, the phenomenon that he is, I mean, Jordans have been recycled for the past 30 years, and they've made so much money off of that. You've got to think about the state of the economy. The economy is headed towards a crash, right? They've said already that this campaign is targeted to 15 to 17-year-olds currently right now. This is about, to borrow a political term, this is about Nike shoring up its base. As the economy turns, and I want to speak to black people at this point because we need to stay woke. Here's the deal. The deal is if they can tie this campaign to a figurehead, Colin Kaepernick, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it, you know what I mean? But if you can tie this to a figurehead, now as the economy changes and all these things happen, who are the ones that are buying the Jordans? Who are the ones that are buying Nikes? We're buying them, and we're spending an inordinate amount of money. Listen, the prices are not going to go down. They're going to stay high, and with this tariff war that we have with China, where the shoes are made and manufactured, they're probably going to have to charge more. So you shore up your base by tying your campaign that has proven to be effective over time, tie your campaign to a leader, to a face, so that no matter what happens, we're still paying $200, $300, $400 for tennis shoes. And we've got to change our approach and start to mobilize our money.
Yeah, and to answer the first point you brought up, Kenyon, I read that they are coming out with Kaepernick dedicated shoes and apparel, and
That's a lie.
yeah, and the income. This is just what I read. The income from that.
No, I'm saying they've already disowned it. They said it's not happening.
really?
Yeah, that wasn't real.
So it'd be nice if they did.
Sorry, it rained on your forehead.
But my so at least as far as Kaepernick goes, and it came out he had been signed with Nike since 2011, which was the year before he ended up playing in the Super Bowl. But for me, I'm just solely happy for Kaepernick because he's still getting a bag. Knowing how many activists, in the past who have sacrificed their livelihood for a cause that often live and die broke. And since not being signed, he's been criticized by almost every platform for how he's handled this by either not issuing statements or not doing public interviews where he admits that he just simply wants to play football. I think he's handled this masterfully because at the end of the day, he let his work and his activism speak for itself. And he is showing now the athletes when that day comes to where your sport abandons you, you can still make a living. So I'm happy for him.
But actually, he has leverage over Nike right now, more leverage than he'll ever have, because piggybacking off what you said about will Nike invest in these causes, if he comes out publicly and says this is what they need to do, and then they don't do it,
puts them in the corner.
Yes.
Well, speaking of Nike, how does this affect Nike? What happens to Nike? Because there was I think 2.7% loss or something like that.
4% loss today, market value,
because everybody had a 4%
exactly.
loss.
Right. Adidas,
I think
Under
theirs
Armour, all of them.
specifically was 2.7 or 7%.
It doesn't. Nike's that ship is sailed.
And one thing they did is they were prepared for a short-term loss.
Right.
One thing they did, they surgically prepared for what happened.
Because they had been surging over the last 12 months. They didn't. They increased a lot over that last year. They weren't quite keeping up with Under Armour, but they were doing well because they were down. But Nike is also the NFL's official jersey maker.
Yeah, and money talks. So they can take whatever position that they want. I don't think it'll influence or impact any relationships that they have with any of the sports leagues. Listen, a company like that is not going to make a calculated decision like this and not consider what the ramifications are going to be. And at the end of the day, it'll be much ado about nothing, which again brings it back to what are we, and I'm speaking to, again, black consumers, what are we going to do? Because we need to be smart about what the intentions are. Again, I'm happy for Kaepernick, any voice, but what it also does, and just to your point, Omar, it spotlights the need for leadership, because that would be my exact move if I was Kaepernick, is to then take this and use the leverage of this situation to say to Nike, okay, let's really put your money where your mouth is. Don't just prop me up. There's a crisis in leadership, but yeah, I mean, it's not going to impact Nike at all negatively. It's just, it'll be a short term whatever. And ultimately, I think in the long run, it pains me to say it, but in the long run, they're going to benefit from it, because now you've got young kids that will remember this moment and they will now be loyal to that company.
Yeah, and Nike knows that demographic. I mean, 2/3 of their demographic is under 35. Most millennials do agree and support what Colin Kaepernick is standing for. As far as Nike goes, this isn't new for them in terms of backing an athlete that may not be, fully supported in the public eye. I mean, you remember the "I'm not a role model" campaign with Charles Barkley. I mean, we've seen them take this leap before, and I think if any company can afford to do it, it's them. But for me, I like the move. I like it, as a world power making this decision, but I'm not ready to invite Nike to the cookout. They have their own problems, which I promise you will likely surface before this week is up. And I think you get any type of publicity like they got this week. I think over $43 million worth of media was spent. That amount of money was spent on media just today. And when we finally get a response from 45, I'm not sure if that's happened yet. Of course,
he did.
He did. Okay. was that the wrap it up?
No, that was
wrap it up, B.
Yeah.
But real quick, to Kenyon's point though, I think to how this impacts us.
That was the purpose behind that, Kev.
Oh, I asked. So
Keep going, Kev.
okay, thank you.
Now hit him with the John Cutter.
I think it shows that players can take back the power over their careers, and this move from Nike is just another example how a major company like HBO with LeBron, like Adidas and Kanye, no matter how you feel about that, or even Jay-Z going with Puma, it's that they're investing in the culture. And whether that's sincere or it's another way for them to exploit us the way they've been doing it for 400 years, I don't think Nike wants to be on the wrong side of history when this comes up 20, 30 years from now.
Yes, sir.
At a certain point, we got to start saying 500 years.
And so with that, we're going to get to an interview. Before we get to our NFL season preview, we've got a special guest in studio. We are super, super excited, the league ambassadors, to have Mr. Bjorn Blythe. He runs bodywork clinics in Hollywood, California, but also in Northern Ireland. He is a true Irishman. He was named after the tennis great Bjorn Borg. And he's currently working in the sports medicine field, but he is also an accomplished American football player in his country, in his home country of Ireland, but also here in the United States, because he was the first person from Ireland to actually receive a college scholarship here in the United States. He attended Chalwyn University in North Carolina. He is also an accomplished rugby player. And so we thought it would be a good idea as the league ambassadors to have him to come in and to talk to him about American football abroad, but also to talk about the relationship between rugby and football. So first of all, golf clap for you, Mr. Bjorn Blythe. Thank you for coming in.
Why you keep bringing these impressive coiffed ass people up in here? Jesus Lord.
And so we'll get the interview started off with this question here. Can you please tell us what's your football love story? How did you fall in love with the game of football?
Right. Do you want the short story?
Yeah, we want the short story.
Please.
So, well, I suppose my sporting history came from rugby, really. I played a little bit of rugby in school. We have a pretty good team. So I was always known for my speed. I wanted to try something different. It was my dad who actually went for a coaching job in Belfast. Turns out they already had a coach. But I came along and immediately, took to the sport. It was similar movements to rugby, so I took the bull by the horns, as it were. Actually, the team were called the Belfast Bulls. So we had a pretty good team up until 2008. I started off with them, and they were quite the team to begin with. My first game ever was a 60-yard touchdown pass. That was the first play of the first game.
Oh, wow.
So it was a big moment for me, and from that moment on, I knew that I would have a little bit of a career in American football. So I caught the bug.
Yeah.
Caught the bug.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had a bit of a previous love for the sport before coming to the Irish American Football League. Didn't know it existed until 2008.
We didn't know it existed until 2018.
Yeah.
As in today.
I was today
7:36.
Right.
That's right. So it's a bit of an underground thing. So not a lot of people do know about it, and in fact, there's a lot of people in Ireland that don't know about it. So that's the big push for us, is to try and get as many people as we can on the boat, and we're trying to get that bus moving to try and pick up all the ex-rugby players.
Sweet.
Yeah.
If you had one sport, American football or rugby, which one would it be to play?
It's gonna be, for me, I think I was very fortunate. Like I said, I got some exposure in Ireland before I came to America. I got some exposure in American football before I came to America. So I came to America with the first and foremost to play American football. However, as I learned that rugby hadn't quite taken off over here, I wanted to bring that over. So I started a few clubs in university and tried to get people from American football trying to play rugby. So I was caught in between a rock and a hard place in some ways, and I enjoyed the opportunity to play rugby in America, because I thought I was bringing something new. Whereas when I was in Ireland, I was playing American football. That was something new to Ireland. So for me, I love being the one to bring new things to different countries. One sport, difficult to choose. I would say I grew up in Ireland, so it's got to be a close one, but it's got to be rugby for me, because I grew up with the sport. But saying that, American football is definitely up there with a very close second.
Okay. Now I've seen rugby highlights. Players running people over, outrunning people to the corner, similar to football. So is there a rugby player that could potentially be a star in the NFL?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's many, and in fact we've had quite a few that have transitioned over to not only college football but also the NFL.
Right.
Yeah, you've probably heard stories of former sprinters as well coming over from athletics to American football. There was Justin Gatlin, of course.
Yeah.
And of course, there has been some rugby players as well that have come over to American football. Now, maybe not in the last few years, but certainly in the future, I could see a few coming over. Now, the big thing is that rugby pays well in the UK, so they'll want to stay there. But what an opportunity, for anyone who plays rugby to come over and try something different, to experience the NFL, the sporting scene in America, because that's a lot of people would jump at the chance for that, rugby or any other sport that they played. So yeah, 100%. I think that there will be future rugby players coming to the US. We've got rugby league, we've got rugby union, so two different sports. Very similar in terms of the ball movements, but different in terms of the rules. So I would imagine that the rugby union players would make an easier transition from rugby to American football. It's a little bit more free flowing. It's a little bit, and that's the difference. The big difference for me is the tackling. Although we've seen that in recent years now, we're being taught to wrap up, as opposed to it used to be in football. We used to lead with the head. I think I remember my old coach teaching me to run into brick walls to practice. So that was gone are those days.
Yeah.
Thanking Will Smith and concussion for that movie, because it's a big part of rugby as well, is concussion. And so we've definitely changed our line of thinking with wrapping up and tackling and so on. So a lot of rugby players will make that transition, I'm sure, in the future.
So what's the temperature of American football in Ireland right now?
Ooh, that's a good question. Now, when you say temperature, we're talking about weather, or we're talking about the...
I'm talking about the excitement around it, or if there is any.
Oh, there's a big buzz about it. We've got... like I said, the league has been in existence. Actually, the league has been in existence since the early 80s, perhaps even before that. But we've now moved on to bigger and better things since those days of getting everyone and anyone just to put on a pair of pads. Nowadays, we have some great athletes who are putting on pads, some fantastic, phenomenal children who are coming out to play in junior leagues, flag football leagues. All these things are now taking off. And this is just in Ireland. So we're talking about Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland. Now, as far as the UK goes, they've got a very forward-thinking program there as well. But we certainly do have a lot of opportunity now for players who want to get that exposure to the game. So at the moment, it's red hot. I mean, we've got some fantastic publicity. We've got a national team that are doing some big things as well on the world stage. And we've also got a lot of publicity from America, because we've had what they call the Celtic Classic. So they bring two Division 1 NCAA teams to play in Dublin.
That's right. Maryland, I think, was there. Like a year or two ago. That's right.
So we had Notre Dame, we had Penn State, we had UCF Knights, all come over to Aviva Stadium in Dublin and showcase what the Division 1 level is like for us in a huge stadium, a phenomenal stadium in Dublin. So we've had record attendances to those things, and it keeps getting better. So for me, it's going to keep growing, and with the popularity of all American sports, I think it'll keep growing.
Okay. As the first Division II American footballer from Ireland, what is your impression of the NCAA? More specifically, do you feel that American college athletes are treated fairly?
Oh, right, okay. Right, okay. Well, I have to be careful who my audience is here. The NCAA listening.
That's actually real. He's in a conversation with USC. I didn't even think about that.
Yes, so I'm here on business, but I'm
NCAA is great.
Move on. Next question.
Let's be as diplomatic as we can.
Yeah, so I could draw comparisons to many different things with the NCAA, but I think for me, your question, and specifically how they treat people, we've had some incidents, certainly. I mean, we've had some incidents. For me,
it could be better.
We've definitely had some incidents, but certainly saying that, I think that in terms of the opportunities for athletes to come out and show what they've got and play on a professional level playing field, I think that we've definitely got opportunities for NCAA players. I think that the problems I've seen incident-wise seems to be that players maybe being maybe taken away from the game for the wrong reasons. I've seen a lot of with regards to boosters. I'm talking about with regards to eligibility, with regards to those sorts of reasons. Without going into specifics, I've seen firsthand problems with that. Where that might not have been the just cause, that might not have been the right scenario, that they were taken away from the game. So for that reason, I think that there's still some problems, a lot to work on, and especially if I was to try and publicize it to people in Europe and say, come to America, come to the Division 1, Division 2 level, play ball, and you'll be given a just and fair opportunity. I would say, you'd have to really make sure you read all the
bylaws.
Yes,
I got you, Bjorn.
all the bylaws.
It's called a tap dance.
That's called a tap. Hey, you got tap dancing skills, bro.
It's an Irish jig.
Yeah. Kevin, you had a question about player safety.
Yeah, you mentioned a few moments ago about some of the changes that have been made in terms of, teaching how to rap instead of lead with your head. But with that being said, is there a concern in the rugby community around player safety and future health implications around the sport, the same way it is in the NFL? Here, players, when they pass, they've donated their brain for studies. There have been lawsuits. Will Smith started a movie about it. Is it that same mindset around the rugby community?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. We've got all sorts of great technology at our disposal these days. We've got gum shields with accelerometers in them. We can test speed, we can test impact, we can test all these things through collision and impact. I feel like we've got so many, the technology is just unbelievable. You wouldn't believe some of the stuff. They're using active gaming now to simulate, virtual reality to simulate, so we're at the pinnacle of where we need to be, I think, in terms of the research being done scientifically to be able to find out what needs to be done to prevent the likes of, as you said, that concussions and even worse possibilities. So yeah, rugby, we've had a lot of, because obviously rugby, the big transition is we don't helmets. So that's massive. Huge. That if you do have a head-to-head collision, which does happen a lot, you're going to have big problems. And it's long-term implications of your family, your future, and what's after the game of rugby. So people are really buying into this technology now to try and put people at a better place.
Real question before we get on to our NFL season preview. And you're going to stick around, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly. Real quick, which sport would you say is more safer today? American football or rugby?
That's a good question.
Pads or no pads?
Well, it's an interesting one because I used to think before, someone had told me once, they'd made fun of us in Ireland. They'd made fun of us for putting on pads and helmets and said, what are you doing? You're putting on pads and helmets. We play rugby, we play Gaelic football, which is another something between soccer and rugby. And they said, why are you putting on the pads and helmet? Are you scared of getting hit? Are you scared of, messing up your hair? What? So, so the answer, which I learned through playing the sport, was that in fact these pads, these helmets, were actually used as weapons. They were used to be able to hit people where they didn't have pads. So nowadays, what we're learning is we're wrapping up. We're actually taught different things that are similar to rugby. So we're no longer taught to lead with the head. We're no longer taught to, hopefully not taught to hit people where they're not wearing pads. And for that reason, I would say that probably football,
really,
in some ways, because it's changed its rules and it's changed its thinking, whereas rugby is still in the same place.
Interesting. Well, first of all, thank you for the time and for sharing a lot of information that was shared. And like I said, you're going to stay with us. We're going to talk to you some more while we're doing our NFL season preview. We've got the 2018 season, which will commence this Thursday. The world champion Philadelphia Eagles will be going against the Atlanta Falcons. We will talk about that game in a moment. First, though, we will start with our NFC West preview. Red O, that is the home of the Los Angeles Rams, San Francisco 49ers, Seattle Seahawks, and Arizona Cardinals. First question
Almost
for
in that
you,
order.
sir. Who's booked for the bottom in that division?
The Seahawks.
Really?
Yep. I got them at 4-12.
Ooh.
Okay.
I think the wheels have come off of Pete Carroll's reign, and I think the seat is about to get hot. And I mean that.
So you gave us a record at 4-12. Is that the record we're taking to the bank?
No.
All right. Which record is that?
The Rams, 12-4.
12-4.
I think for a team that was ascending, they probably had the most complete off season, or at least close to the most complete off season of any team. And an ascending team got noticeably better on paper. And they won 10 games last year, I want to say.
Yeah.
And I think their off season is worth 2 more games. 12-4.
And so your most important person in that division is?
Watch this. It was the same answer Dev gave last year. Who was the left tackle of the Seattle Seahawks? No, for real. Because it's still the same shit.
Is it George Fenn?
I don't know who the hell it is. It don't work.
It don't work.
But truthfully, I kind of have it at a tie between Garoppolo, because if he is who everyone thinks he is, the San Francisco arrow is pointed all the way up, and it's going to be hard to stop with that head coach. And still with somebody I picked last year, Whitworth.
Andrew Whitworth.
Yeah. You know,
Todd Gurley thanks him.
Yes, he does. Probably the most underrated signing of the year last year. So
I agree with that.
All right. Moving to the NFC South. That is the home of the New Orleans Saints, Carolina Panthers, Atlanta Falcons, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Dad, who is booked for the bottom in that division? I think I know the answer.
I think this is a unanimous choice. That's going to be the Bucks.
Yeah.
That's going to be by default. I mean, I think.
Are they done with Jameis?
Well, that's what we have to find out. So my thing is this: like, even I think this is the best division of football. The
NFC South.
NFC South. That's my opinion.
I'm listening.
But even if that's not the case, like their QB situation is wild, like you said. Even if without him being suspended, there's questions, and they have Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's the number 4 all time, and I'm going to steal money being a QB in league history. So who knows what that guy can do? But
Which record are we taking to the bank?
I'm going to take the Falcons' record to the bank at 11-5. I think that first of all, this division plays the NFC East. They play the AFC North, and then they do get Green Bay in the cold, which could be a problem later on. But I think this division beats up on itself.
Okay.
And I think 11-5 gets them the actual to win the division.
And your most important player in the division is?
None other than Mr. Julio Jones.
Okay.
This is a contract year.
It is.
He actually came to camp and put on display why they need to pay him. And he wants to be the highest paid receiver in the game. If he scores more touchdowns, that helps because he hasn't been scoring touchdowns. He's been getting catches and yards. But I think he is the most important because they want to keep that. And we don't know what Matt Ryan looks like without a beast wide receiver.
Right. So no love for Bjorn's Carolina Panthers, huh?
No.
I said, I think they're the best division in football. I think 3 of those teams gets in, and we know it's not the Bucks.
All right. I have the NFC North. Booked for the bottom, the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, shit.
One word for the Minnesota Vikings, and it's pressure. Well, it is a hot take, but here's the thing. It's pressure. And it's twofold. Number one, pressure on Kirk Cousins. That's an $84 million contract, guaranteed. You got a team that went all the way to the NFC semifinals. Everybody's looking at them as a Super Bowl contender. Dealing with that pressure, followed up by the pressure that he's going to feel because that offensive line is absolutely atrocious. And it is getting worse by the minute. And when you add to the fact, and not many people are talking about it as we're starting the season, but they're going to miss Tony Sparano. Rest in peace. Great offensive line coach. So you've got injuries already. You had a terrible line last year. Case Keenum was 3rd in quarterback pressures last season. Kirk Cousins is not Case Keenum. He's not fleet of foot. The internal pressure plus the external pressure, I got Minnesota booked for the bottom. We'll be talking about it at the end of the season. In terms of the record that we're going to take to the bank, I've got the Detroit Lions at 11-5.
Whoa.
He's just wilding out.
11 and 5. Look at Bjorn. Bjorn looking at me like I'm crazy.
This is bold predictions. Hey, what's in there? Is that
It's gone now.
Is that
Yeah, we know.
Let me tell you something. Matt Patricia, no one's talking about Mr. Patricia, right? He's got the most talent he's had as a coach defensively on the defensive side of the ball. Ziggy Ansah, you've got Darius Slay. Gerard Davis is a beast in the middle at linebacker. Quandre Diggs is a prototypical
Not
safety.
Chris Warren.
Listen. And then on top of that, the NFC North, Omar, what division do they play? They play the AFC East.
Yes,
Matt Patricia is intimately familiar with that. I think he goes 4-0 against the AFC East. He also beats the Carolina Panthers. And I've got them going 11-5. Wow. Listen, no one said Matthew Stafford was transcendent. That's what Omar thought I said. But he's a really good quarterback.
Check the tape.
He's a really good quarterback. They've got a run game. They've got one of the best offensive lines in football. Yes, LeGarrette Blount. They've got
a 100-yard rusher in 6 years,
and that will change. And that will absolutely
he gonna
change.
get touchdowns.
That will
about 100 yards.
That will absolutely change this year. Kerryon Johnson is a name to remember. And then finally, most important player in the division. You would say it's Aaron Rodgers, our most important person. Aaron Rodgers, I guess it is. It's really Mike McCarthy, but it's going to be on Aaron Rodgers to call audibles. Because those 5 and 7 step drops that they normally do with those defensive ends, Khalil Mack, Leonard Floyd, Everson Griffin, Danielle Hunter, those 5-7 step drops are gonna work. It's all dead. It's got to be quick. So he's got to call audibles at the line of scrimmage. Otherwise, he's gonna miss a whole nother season again. So that's what I got for the NFC North. We've got the NFC East with Junior Blue, sir. Who's booked for the bottom?
The team in Washington. I mean, they downgraded their quarterback. They have a worst run defense in the league.
Hey, I agree with you.
Geis got hurt. Their receiving core is Dotson, Crowder, and Richardson. I mean,
You don't believe in AP?
no. Let's no. Move on.
He don't care. He believes in him.
And that's who's supposed to believe in him.
Take this record to the bank. Who we taking to the bank?
Giants 6-10.
Whoa.
Their first 7 games: Jaguars, Cowboys, Texans, Saints, Panthers, Eagles, and Falcons. They're gonna start off in a hole.
So you're not a big believer in the offensive explosion that's getting ready to come?
No, I gotta see it. I gotta see it.
Okay, and then your most important person in that division is?
Carson Wentz, and I have a question for Bjorn.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he will be able to return to the same level he was playing at last year, since he's just recovering from his PCL and ACL tear? And how soon will he be back?
Right. Yeah, it's a good question because there's a lot of different ways to manage those types of injuries. You know, with so an ACL and a PCL that's in front and behind the knee, and obviously this isn't his first time with an injury. He's had previous injuries as well. So really, with the ACL and the PCL, we could expect to see him back. I mean, that in itself, a ligament injury can take months. And it's probably the worst. If you're going to tear or rupture anything, the ligament is going to be the hardest one and the longest in terms of the rehab. But I'm sure he's been doing his work. He's obviously a professional. He knows how to. He's got a great team around him, I'm sure. So yeah, I mean, I think why not? I mean, I think that with the technology, again, I go back to this because of what we experienced with Heinz Ward all those years ago, before the Super Bowl with the PRP injections. You know what is possible. I think that I'm not saying the PRP injection is the right choice, but there are so many technologies and methods for treatment that will be at his disposal. And with that said, I think that there's endless opportunities for him to be back on the field as soon as possible. Certainly, as a physical therapist, I would be working closely with him, with the performance coaches. I would be getting him back to sport specific stuff. So yeah, I mean, I feel like with an ACL, PCL, it's absolutely possible. Now, whether he's had, I don't know the ins and outs, whether he's had the reconstruction, whether he's had, whether it was a grade 1 or 3. But certainly, with regards to either of those types of grade sprains, we would expect to see him back sooner rather than later, being that he's a healthy, fit athlete.
Okay.
All right. Before we get to the AFC, real quick, as we talked about, Game 1 of the NFL season is Thursday. Kevin, I will start with you. Eagles versus Falcons. Who wins and what's the score, sir?
Do you guys remember last year before that playoff game, you asked the same question and no one took the Eagles because they didn't have their starting quarterback? I feel the exact same today.
Run it back.
Yo, the clock was right for them more than twice last year. I don't feel it. At least this week 1 with Philly. I think they're still trying to get everybody back. I'm going to take Atlanta 26-20.
Redo.
Same thing, 28-21, Atlanta.
Dev.
I have Atlanta 20-14.
24-14 Atlanta.
23-10 Atlanta. Yeah.
And the fucking Eagles are going to win. Right?
Kev, let's stay with you as we go to the AFC. You have the AFC South. Who's booked for the bottom, sir?
This is deja vu from last year's season preview. I have the Indianapolis C words, and you can choose which C word applies to them. Just flat out, they're trash. And I haven't seen Andrew Luck comfortably throw the ball downfield. Granted, yes, it's preseason. They wanted to keep it simple and structured, but I mean, even if he can, I'm not comfortable that O-line can keep him upright to give him enough time to do that. And if he is healthy, Indy has the least talented team in that division. The only competitive advantage they have compared to the other 3 teams is their kicker, and he's 45 years old. They're going to go like 4-12, 5-11.
Okay, and which record are we taking to the bank in that division?
Well, being that I was also right on this last year, I'm going to take the Texans record to the bank 10-6. I want to say 9-7 so bad, but I'm going 10-6 because they have the weakest schedule in the league. They play 6 games versus playoff teams from last year. 4 of those games are in their division, and 5 of those games against teams with new coaches. And of course, there's uncertainty with Watson returning, J.J. Watt, merciless. They added Tyrann Mathieu, but their schedule is so weak that they'll trip and fall into at least 9 wins. But I'll give them 10.
Most important player in the division is?
This is a no-brainer. It is Mr. Julian Davenport, who many people don't know, but he is the left tackle for Houston, who had one of the worst offensive lines last year. I think Houston ultimately is the dark horse in the AFC, but if they can keep Deshaun Watson upright, and he's not running for his life and putting strain on himself to eventually get hurt like he did last year, I think by far Houston's going to be a serious team. Even if half of those guys come back healthy, if Davenport doesn't get killed like he did last year and can fill in his second year, watch out for Houston. 10-6.
So no mention of the Jags. 11-5. You got nothing for the Jags, huh?
We don't believe you. You need a lot more people.
Well, you were the biggest believer last season.
Kenyon, that was last year. You didn't have a team last year. No, I think honestly, I think there are three teams with winning records in this division: the Titans, the Jags, and Houston. And he's gonna suck. I think Jacksonville, as bad as they were offensively last year, they still only won 10 games. And we talked about last week how their offense was just decimated. I don't think Blake Bortles and that offense can make plays on 3rd and 7 to win games. I give them maybe 9-7, maybe 10-6, but it'll be like I said, 3 teams in that division with a winning record.
Junior Blue, you have the AFC East. Who's booked for the bottom in that division? So hard, I know.
I think I'm gonna go with The Buffalo Bills. I had 3 options. I had 3 choices for the bottom, so I took the Bills. Nasty Nate starting for them. We saw what happened the last time he started.
Nasty Nate.
And McCoy is a year older, and he's playing under a cloud. So I don't think it's gonna be a good season. I don't think it's gonna be a good season.
Hey, if you want fun, just check out their roster and just look at their depth chart. It's terrible.
It's disgusting.
No.
Okay, which record are we taking to the bank?
The Patriots 13-3.
Really?
Yes, they sweep the AFC East, of course, and they lose to the Jags, Vikings, and Packers.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't see them winning. They're not. I don't.
Their schedule is pretty weak.
The schedule is very weak.
Yeah,
Most important player in the division.
I couldn't go with the Patriots, so I went with Sam Darnold.
Okay.
Basically because last year the Jets, they surprised with how many games they won.
Yeah.
Their defense is good. If Sam Darnold can actually play up to par, they could come in and be 8-8 because of that defense.
Wow.
Well, if they can overcome all the interceptions he's going to throw.
Don't forget the fumbles.
Well, you know.
That's why he's the most important.
See, if he plays well.
So I have the AFC North. Trick question for you, Bjorn. Which team do you like? Do you like the Baltimore Ravens or do you like the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Be careful now.
That's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
Look at Kevin.
Get this right.
Getting closer.
I'm gonna give you a hint.
No, yeah, I mean that was always a great game that I used to love to watch. You know, that the 2 defenses that were on show in those games were fantastic. So, being closer to Baltimore, I would have had to have gone for them, just location wise. Is that the right answer?
That is the right answer.
Well, book for the bottom.
Get out the way.
Book for the bottom. I hate to say it, but it is going to be the Cleveland Browns. They will be improved, I think, but you know, here's the thing:
only go up.
Cincinnati, yeah, I know, right? Cincinnati, I think, is the best team that no one is talking about right now.
Damn.
I think
changed in a year.
Yeah, a lot. Andy Dalton has got a security blanket back. Tyler, Eifert, right? Baltimore, I think, has the deepest offense in the division, and I think Pittsburgh has the most talent in the division. Cleveland doesn't have anything that's the best of anything. So I think for that reason, they're booked for the bottom. The record that I'm going to tank to the bank would be Cleveland's. I think they win 6 games. Having said that, I think they've got 6 wins in them.
I think Hugh keeps a job if they do that.
I hope so. Here's the key thing for them. They play Carolina, they play Atlanta, they play the Los Angeles Chargers at home, and then they got to go to New Orleans, they got to go to Oakland, they got to go to Houston, they have to go to Denver. I have them going 2-5 in that stretch. Best case scenario, if they were to go 5-2 with those 7 games, they could go 9-7. But I think they go 6-10. Most important player in the division, I think, is Le'Veon Bell. And I'll tell you why. Number one, him not being in camp right now, he's clearly focused on himself. They are trying to win it together. The Killer Bees, Brown, Bell, Ben, are trying to win it. If Le'Veon Bell is on some other type shit, I think that this is a team that has the potential to not even make the playoffs. That's number one. Number two, he legit could come in week 10 and he gets a year. He gets his year of eligibility to then go into free agency. And I think everybody was expecting him to show up on Monday, and he didn't show up. As far as I know, he didn't show up today either, right?
Yeah, he got till tomorrow.
So he got till week 10 is my point, though. Yeah. And if he does that, the season goes awry. The other thing that no one is talking about is they lost Todd Haley. Yeah. So they've got a whole nother offensive structure here. Le'Veon Bell, the talent that Bell has with Antonio Brown and obviously Ben Roethlisberger with a little juju on the side. Like I said, they have the most talent there. But if Le'Veon is not in the picture, I think this is not even a playoff team in that division. So he's the most important player for me. Devin.
Yes, sir.
You've got the AFC West. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and tell me something good. Who's booked for the bottom?
Chargers.
No, it's not.
That's going to be the Mile High team, the Broncos. They're booked for the bottom. I think you lose to Lieb. They're another year older in their defense. It's another year removed away from Wade Phillips, which put a lot of things together.
Vance Joseph, we looking at you, brother.
And I think Case Keenum will come back to earth. Case Keenum will come back to earth.
Okay. Take this record to the bank.
Theirs,
which is
6-10,
6 wins.
6 wins. I think they split with the Raiders and the Chiefs. I think they beat the Browns at home, and I think they beat the Chargers in Week 17 because the Chargers already wrapped up the division. And then
I like how you said that. Say that one more time.
I'm not. But then they also can beat the Cardinals and the Jets with rookie QBs because I'm fully expecting the Cardinals to be playing a rookie QB.
Most important player in the division.
Most important player in the division is Khalil Mack. Please explain. He actually changed 2 different divisions, but seriously, it's not him, but it is. But the most important group in that division is not even a player. It is the Chargers training staff.
I know.
If the Chargers stay healthy, they walk away with that division.
Right.
But history is history, and history is 99-0.
Right.
And the present's the present because they couldn't get out of training camp.
So with that, let me ask you, Bjorn. When you have a team that has had as many injuries as the Chargers historically, right? Mm-hmm. Does that mean there's something wrong with the training staff? Or is that just illogical thing? Because that's been a running joke with us that we need to fire the whole training staff. I mean, every single year there are usually 4 or 5 major injuries with this team specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at the screening process when they're coming in. Who are they? What are they made up of? What is their body? You know, you'd have to look at their specifics, and I'm sure this happens when you're taking them in for the preseason. Are they being monitored? Are they being hooked up on electrodes? Are they being monitored throughout their practices? Are they losing electrolytes? Are they gaining them? What are they sweating? On a cellular level, you want to know what's going on with the athlete. You want to know exactly who they are, what they're made up of, and to be able to help someone prevent injury, that's how, to be able to know who they are. So if that's not being done, perhaps that could be, you could have a case for maybe that's why they're getting injured. But I'm not saying that that's not being done. What I am saying, though, is that needs to be monitored.
That the training staff, there is a possibility. Yeah, Kev?
I think Kawhi Leonard will have something to say about this. That's all I'm saying.
All right, let's get to our football tea, which is really easy. We'll go rapid fire. We have a playoff question. Again, we here at the League Ambassadors, we know that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we predict, what we say. It's about the games that are going to be played. So we're not going to try to predict who's going to be in the Super Bowl. But what we do know is that there are always new teams that make the playoffs. Yep. So I will start with you, Kevin. Give me 2 teams that did not make the playoffs in 2017 that will make the playoffs in 2018.
The Baltimore Ravens, of course.
Can't be mad at him.
I'm extremely confident in what we can do. But my bias aside, again, the Houston Texans, who are my adopted children this year, I think they, of course, rebound. They get some of their pieces back. Geez. I mean, the NFC is just, it's basically, I think it's going to stay the way it is. If anything, I hate to admit this, I could see, if we're trash, I think the Jets might be able to sneak in the playoffs. It's always.
He hit him with the wrap it up.
If we're trash. Dad, give me 2 new teams.
Ravens, Chargers.
Okay. All right. I got Chargers, of course, and the Lions, clearly. Junior Blue.
I got the Chargers in Green Bay.
Okay. Red O.
Bears, Chargers.
Oh, my God. Okay.
And I'm dead serious.
Kevin, give us our Brexit Bootbag winner, please.
Well, thank you. I've been waiting to rock off all night. I have a story to tell you guys about a gentleman named Michael Kendricks, who in last week's episode of Hard Knocks, Kendricks gave his then Brown teammates and staff tips on how to game plan against his former team, the Philadelphia Eagles.
Snitching.
Kendricks spilled the tea, y'all. He divulged that Zach Ertz is a reluctant blocker who I quote, doesn't want that smoke. He gave insight on how quarterback Nick Foles liked to throw the ball downfield and specifics on how to exploit their tackle, Mr. Vitae, and his weaknesses. And that insight proved fruitful for the Browns as they abused Vitae and Nick Foles struggled, leading the Browns to a shutout preseason victory. Now, this episode aired last Tuesday as we were filming our show, and to quote the president of Black people, Mr. Jay-Z, it was all good just a week ago. Because the very next day, not even 12 hours later, Kendricks was charged by federal prosecutors with insider trading, where he made over $1 million in illegal profits on 4 major investments just over 4 years ago. And he's now facing up to 25 years in prison. So my biggest gripe with this is who Kendricks put his trust in. He gave valuable information to the worst franchise in sports on camera and didn't expect that any of that would backfire. And then on the other hand, put his financial livelihood in the hands of not only a Harvard grad, but a dude who worked at Goldman Sachs. Like, you are setting yourself up for prison time. So not only was Kendricks selling secrets, but he was also buying them too. And for that, Michael Kendricks, you are taking home the Brexit Bootbag Award this week. You rat bastard.
I knew it was you, Kendricks.
Way to hit the post, Kev.
That was funny. And it was ironic. All right. Week 1 picks. It's football season, guys.
Yes, sir.
It's here. We obviously already made our picks for Eagles-Falcons game on Thursday. We'll do the Monday night games, which are the first afternoon game is the snoozer, Detroit versus the Jets. And then we've got the Monday evening matchup between Les's Raiders, the return of John Gruden.
It's a Monday night, no less.
Right, to Monday night versus the Los Angeles Rams. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that we are all on the Lions in that first game. Is that an aye?
Aye.
Well, if they're going to go 11-5, can y'all?
They better start with the win over the Jets.
Starts with the Jets. All right. Raiders, Rams, Red-O.
Are we not starting with Les?
No, he's
Yeah, I'm Rams, man. Rams. I'm sorry, brother. Y'all the first victims.
Dad?
I'm going with the better team, the Rams.
Damn.
Kev?
Les, explain yourself.
Yeah, tell me how.
I'm going to go with the Raiders because the Rams offense hasn't taken one snap the whole preseason.
There you go.
Hey, what's the president's quote?
We don't believe you. You need more people.
We need that on.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm taking the Rams. John Gruden, though, is 5-3 as coach or coordinator against Wade Phillips. Against Wade Phillips defenses.
You can't use those stats.
No. You absolutely can, because Wade Phillips running the same 3-4 defense for 90 years.
Yeah, he got some bad boys running that defense.
He does have bad, exactly, and that's kind of the point. That's kind of the point. And really, the thing is, this is Gruden. He's going to score. They're going to score about 20 points. He averages 24 points against Wade Phillips defenses, but the Rams are going to score 34, and that's going to be the difference.
Well, I'm glad you feel that way with giving us that prediction. So what we are going to do now is get into a brand new segment.
We've got a sponsor, y'all. We're moving up.
So our brand new segment
is
called All In with Ken, and this is sponsored by MyBookie. So
Sponsored by who?
MyBookie.
MyBookie. Okay, so first things first. Everybody, you want to go to MyBookie, MyBookie. That's a website. Sports betting is legal. Go to MyBookie. You want to put in a promo code 32KR. Our promo code is 32KR. What does that promo code get you? For $50 initial deposit at minimum, MyBookie will match it dollar for dollar. So if you go to MyBookie right now, deposit $50, MyBookie is going to give you $50 to match. That gives you $100 to start. And then these are going to be your bets for week 1. Follow with me. We've got the total In the Philadelphia Eagles Atlanta Falcons game, the game total is 45. Take the under. Then we have the New York Giants, 3.5-point underdogs at home. Home underdogs are great week 1. Take the New York Giants to cover. And then finally, in your straight up lock, take the Baltimore Ravens to thrash the Buffalo Bills. Absolutely thrash them. Those are your picks for week 1. Here we go. Here's the deal. Total 45 with Atlanta, Philadelphia. Matt Ryan against Jim Schwartz defenses, he averages 13 points per game. The last 2 games he's played, he's averaged 13. As a whole, he's averaged 20. So here's the question you got to ask yourself. Do you believe that a Philadelphia team coming off of their first title ever with a depleted receiving corps, with Nick Foles coming off of a 16 for 26, 2 interception preseason, and an offseason of Willie want-y questions for Carson Wentz, do you believe that team is going to score 27 points? No, they're not. Take the under. New York Giants, 3.5-point home underdogs against the Jacksonville Jaguars. In the 4 road losses that the Jags had last year, there were 3 things that were held in common. Number 1, catches out of the backfield. Remember Derrick Henry in the game against Tennessee at the end of the season. He had that 66-yard touchdown catch out the backfield. Adrian Peterson, who was not known for catching balls, had 4 catches for 20 yards against them. And Kyle, pronounce his last name, fullback for Baltimore guys?
Ricard?
No. That San Francisco signed.
Juszczyk.
Kyle Juszczyk caught 5 balls for 76 yards out of the backfield. Who do the New York Giants have that's coming out of the backfield? Saquon Barkley. Gonna have a big day. The second thing you realize with Jacksonville in those 4 road losses last year, tight end play. They get creamed by the tight ends. Tight ends averaged 5 catches for 60 yards. Evan Ingram is also gonna have a big game. And then finally, Blake Bortles threw a total of 7 interceptions in their 4 road losses. Blake Bortles is going to turn the ball over, and Janoris Jenkins and Landon Collins are 2 of the most aggressive defensive players. 8 pick sixes in the last 3 years between the 2 players. So the Giants, I like them not only to cover, but I actually like them to win at home. And then Baltimore versus Buffalo straight up. I mean, do we need an explanation for that? Buffalo is terrible. Their offensive line is trash. All you need to do is look at that 3rd preseason game. Josh Allen was running for his life. Baltimore, that defensive front is going to wear Buffalo out at home. Take them as a straight-up pick. Those are your picks for week 1. And with that, we're all in with Ken. Once again, Bjorn Blythe, thank you so much for visiting with us.
Pleasure.
It was awesome to have you
Thanks
here.
for having me.
Hope you had fun. Enjoy week 1, fellas. And we will see you next week.
Shots time.
Cheerio.
So there's a lot of ball catching and cream in that segment.
And I'm going to take
7 days, no games as I run it down the line. We got Kenny Ken put 100 on the tees with the streak for the cash. He ESPN. Seth Curry with the shot. In reality, he's more like Seth, but he's all we got. Up next is Gentleman Jack, better known as Junior Blue. We told him not to do it anyway, but he did what he do. To his right is Devin, that dude, Eldad or Dirt Ass Dan. Just don't ask him a question, cause then he'll answer your question with another question, and then he'll add another question on top of that question. Damn. And I'm Red O, the Buck Wild Problem Child.
Flow Butter, aka John Cutter.
It's the league ambassadors, and we playing to win. At the 2-yard line, and make no mistake, we running it in.